Hey Birchouse friends, welcome back. So this week's question comes to us from Frederick Mack, who asks, "Hey Birchouse, what got you into Viking culture?" Now this question was asked during the Ohio Viking Festival, and you might certainly think that I am into Viking culture. The Ohio Viking Festival is our biggest event of the year, and I've talked about this before. Our first shields that we offered were indeed Viking shields. And we spent a lot of time doing research and recreations of these shields. In fact, we have two recreations of archaeological finds, the Trelleborg and the Gokstad, that are on display with the Swordsmanship Museum and Academy. So we spent a lot of time with Viking Age arms and armor. We spent a lot of time with Viking Age research and education, and we do sell a lot of Viking shields. And once again, these were our first. And then finally, like I said before, the Ohio Viking Festival is our biggest event of the year. So you might think that we are really into Vikings. We started with Viking shields because they were easy. I was like, oh, I could probably build that. And, we built our first set, and they were really successful, and we kind of leaned into it. But I'm not particularly into Viking culture. I don't listen to like a lot of Heilung. I don't go to a lot of Viking events. I'm not a pagan. I'm not particularly invested in Viking culture. That's not to say I'm not fascinated by Viking culture. I absolutely am. We didn't spend this much time if I didn't have some in Viking arms and armor if we weren't fascinated by the Viking culture itself. And I am. Just not above any other culture. So I come at this business from a angle of a love of history. And while we did start with Viking shields, we have moved into kite shields that are post-Viking era, and Scottish targe from the 16th, 17th century, even into the 18th century. Roman scutum that greatly predate the Viking Age. Heater shields from the medieval period. Bucklers that all over from the medieval into the Renaissance. Japanese tadate. I come at this from a love of history and a love of the craftsmanship of arms and armor from antiquity. So I think Viking culture is fascinating. They're a fascinating group of people who accomplish a lot in a very short time that they occupy history. But I don't hold Viking culture over one or another time period. In fact, I don't really hold any time period of culture above any. I suppose if you really twisted my arm, I might cop to being very fascinated with 18th century arms and armor and 18th century history. I think it's a very interesting time where we're moving away from I've always kind of said it feels like it bridges the gap between the age of chivalry, sword and shields, and modern military mindsets. 17th, 18th century. I think that's a fascinating time period in history. So, if you twist my arm, I might cop to that. But really, I just come at this from a love of cultures and a love of history. So, Frederick, that was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. Now, I'm not drawing a question for next week because we only have one question from our pool left. And next week's question comes from Jessica Green, who is last, but certainly not least. We are out of questions here. So if you want to ask a question, comment below with "Hey Birchouse," ask, and we'll answer it in a future video. In the meantime, we'll see you all next Wednesday.
Welcome to Birchouse, where history meets art. We do